I went on a walk for 10 minutes. Everyone says I went missing for 7 years. I walk past the same creepy cornfield every day, but today there was something horribly wrong. I heard laughter. To be more specific, it was a child's laughter. I paused and looked into the cornfield. A pair of forest green eyes looked back at me. The girl looked to be no older than 7, had red hair tied into twin braids, and I assumed she was one of Art's grandchildren. She smiled broadly. "Catch me!" She darted back into the corn, and I could hear her giggles slowly fade away. Normally I would have scoffed at going into the field, as I'd have to cross the ditch, and I didn't want to get dirt on my pants, but I felt a little bit of concern. A small child running around the field by herself, so with a jump that I knew my knees would feel in the morning, I jumped into the cornfield. Using the sound of her laughter, I started pushing through the corn. The dry leaves scratched at my face and hands, and dust kicked up into my face. I knew she couldn't outrun me for long. Even if she was a child with boundless energy, I had longer legs. However, I exited the cornfield in a place I didn't know. My house was nowhere to be seen, and there was a light layer of snow covering the ground. I spun around, but the corn was gone, replaced by frosted evergreen trees. The temperature had significantly dropped, and I was now thankful that my daughter insisted I bring a coat. I shivered and spun around a few more times, trying to make sense of this dream I'd apparently fallen into. And where was that little girl? "Hey, mister!" I finally spun around enough to see her, peering past a branch. She grinned. "You catch me, I'll show you the way out." That began the chase. Getting smacked with tree branches was far worse than the corn, the needles tearing at my skin like knives as I pushed past them to find that little girl. Whenever I got lost, I'd hear her laugh. She was having fun. I was not. The wet snow beneath my feet made it impossible to gain traction, and forget running. I'd slip if I stepped wrong. With every minute I got colder and colder. My teeth chattered so hard my jaw ached. Then I broke from the tree line into a grassy meadow. I didn't expect the change, so I ended up toppling over. The grass smelled sweet as honey. A fat bumblebee trundled past my head and landed on a black-eyed Susan. It was heaven, but the peace of the meadow was broken by that girl laughing again. "Oh, are you already giving up?" The warm sunlight made her glow like a tiny angel. But as I stumbled to my feet, I caught something behind those big eyes I hadn't before. Malevolence. She was toying with me, and she knew it. I can't tell you how many times the environment changed. One minute it'd be across a meadow, then a desert during a sandstorm. I'd have to rely solely on hearing her in places like that. Sometimes we'd be back in the cornfield, and I'd shout for Art to get me out of here, but no help ever came. Sometimes we'd be running across barren tundra, where she'd be just out of my grasp. She wasn't always a little girl either. Sometimes she was a young teen, with a gap between her teeth and who'd hum sweet tunes. Sometimes she was a ravishing model of her early 20s, with fiery hair and a flirtatious grin. And the times she wasn't any of those, she was an ancient crone, with a bent back and arthritic hands that clutched to her cane, but still managed to hobble away from me. She called herself Clarice occasionally. Other times it was Lolita, Dixie, Isabella, Hope. I lost count of her names too. A straight answer was impossible. She'd never lie to me though, just avoid answering any of the questions I'd ask her, so I knew she was my key out of there. It was in the meadow where I finally got her. She was a little girl again, and her taunting was beyond cruel this time. She'd stop, pick flowers, and run on before I could grab her. She'd throw the flowers about and sing ridiculous nonsense songs, and I knew I couldn't ever win like this, so I dropped to the ground. The little girl stopped,